Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast, formerly known as Clown Night's Strong Days. I am your host, Andi Clark, and Halloween is just around the corner. Halloween can be full of so many potential triggers for kids with big emotions. We have that all three emotions. We have the shark where they're always on high alert, on guard, looking around them, ready to attack at any moment. We have the clownfish where they don't like to go far from their enemy. They're not far from home. They like to stick close to home. They're a little bit, the anxiety is kicking in, worrying about everything that's going to be happening, maybe worrying if their costume's good enough or big enough, or what's going to happen on the costume day, or are we going to have everything ready? Are we going to have enough candy? All of these things. Then we have the child who is turtled and in their shell, who kind of wants to hide, who doesn't like the attention at Halloween, who doesn't like all of the stimulation and everything around them. So there's so much that goes on. We have like costumes, they can feel uncomfortable and itchy, and you can't see. There's loud noises, there's running around at night, being out at night for some kids. And there could be all kinds of weather. Here we have snow, we have rain, we have cold days, we can have a really nice warm day here. And then we have all the candy too. And the emotional overload, once the fun ends, like you build up, build up, build up, build up, done, right? There's these highs with this big drop, and that can all be overwhelming. So a kid that excitedly loves Halloween is a big part of all of it, is excited. We'll have 50 costumes if you let them. And then when it's done, they're like, oh, well, now what do I do? Now I need you to entertain me. Now what's going to go on? And they might have like anger. They might have boredom. They might have, just all kinds of emotions happening after. So, you've seen it all before. Like the meltdowns around Halloween are real. And like some of these kids are struggling with that sensory input from the night, emotional after too much sugar, difficult transitioning out of such a stimulating environment. And then we add in time change. So I don't know when. I should probably look that up. When is the time change this year? 2024 fall. When is the time change? November 3rd, Sunday, November 3rd. So Halloween is, I'm doing this while I'm listening. Halloween is Thursday and the weekend after. So 2 days after is the time change. So that makes it so tough as well. You have Halloween on Thursday night. Friday, the kids will still go to school. Was that Thursday night? I think it was Thursday night, I said. And this is 2024. And then the kids go to school. And then they have the time change. And then they're going back to school on Monday after all of those emotions and the time change. So, oh man. And I don't know. Hold on. Time change, fall, forwards or back. What do we do in the fall? Fall back. Ooh, this might be helpful for you then. Okay. One of my hacks is really going to work for you right now. Okay. I'm excited about this actually with falling back. So it's later at night. Okay. So I've got all kinds of strategies for you that I've used through the years in helping with all of this. And now I just got even more excited about my time change strategy. So I'm really wanting to help you because like the next morning routines are thrown off. You have all this emotional regulation that goes out the window. So it doesn't have to be this way, right? We can really prepare for this excitement, and we can be mindful of the overstimulation and the emotional crashes that come after. Honestly, preparing ourselves as parents for some of this, which still may happen, knows that if you actually build up enough of what you need ahead of time as well, then you'll be stronger, prepared, and ready for it. So you'll be able to handle it better as well to mitigate things and decrease the emotions so they're not as big as they could be if you're not ready for them. So that is what I'm really wanting you to get from today, is making sure that you know how to guide your child during and after the aftermath in a way that keeps not only their emotional regulation intact, but also yours as well. And if we like, oh, man, if we don't prepare for this, it's going to be tough. And I really want to avoid this being tough for you. I want to help you make this the best Halloween for your kids and yourself. Okay, so I have a bunch of strategies in place, and not all the strategies are going to work for you. I'd like you to kind of go through them, pick and choose what you feel will be the best. And just make sure that, you're really taking what you feel is right for you and is based off of your kid. Okay. So let's dive into this. We're going to start with the week of. The week of Halloween. So this came out on a Monday, and we're saying Halloween is on Thursday. So the week of, trying to make sure that this week is as calm as possible. If your kids do have activities, like try to make sure that the food this week is not full of candy. It's so easy to start diving into the candy early. Try to not dive into the candy. Try to make sure that your bedtimes have a really good routine going into them. No blue lights an hour before bed, if possible, like no screens. Helping them. Magnesium is one of my big go-tos for good sleeps. It's one first responders, everybody, when you're in a high stress state, you fly through magnesium. Magnesium helps to calm that frontal lobe of that brain, to stop the revolving, what are they called? Thoughts. And to start actually naturally raising your melatonin. So magnesium biglycinate or threonate are always my go-tos. Giving a little bit of that to your kid, not a citrate that will loosen their bowels. Things like this to support. Oh man, there's so many other things I want to go into, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Just make sure it's as calm and quiet as it can be in order to help support your kids the best. Another thing for us is we always have a crock pot dinner on Halloween, quite often chili. Chili is often our go-to. I just love it. Chili or a stew in the crock pot. So simple to make. Make it ahead of time. Shove it in the crock pot. It goes off. We'll set a timer. We actually have like a timer on our crock pot. We have it plugged into the plug on a timer. So around noon-ish, 1 or 2 o'clock, we'll put it on low. So by the time that we all get home, we can eat. And food is right there and it's ready to go, that we can help with costumes. We can help with everything that needs to get done. And that chili is there. We also keep it after trick-or-treating in case they're hungry still. We can just heat up a bowl in the microwave, and so that they're not just having candy. So that's one of our big ones, is having some sort of an easy meal crock pot dinner. Now, having a sensory-friendly Halloween. Costumes. You may have a child that loves costumes, and you may actually have meltdowns because they're worried that their costume isn't, is just, they want more. They want to just go big and elaborate. And then you have other kids that really struggle with costumes. This is both of my kids. We have a value village by our house, and I used to go the day after Halloween when they were little and buy up all the costumes. They were like all 50%. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to have the best like costume trunk for my kids for during the year. And their friends would all come over and love our costume bin. My kids would never put them on. Never. None of them. Any of them wouldn't do anything. Even if they were like adult clothes, I'd buy adult clothes and adult everything, right? Nothing. They did not like the feel of them. They didn't like how it's just the sensory. My one child dresses for feel completely. Everything has to feel good, right? It has to feel like, can't feel the tags, socks, can't feel the seams, right? So when it came to costumes, it was this big thing. We're like, oh my goodness, right? Like costumes were tough. So, but they still not every year. Some years they'd want to go out and some years not. Kind of afraid they would just go to a couple of houses. There's the stimulation of all the kids, all the chaos. They now will go anywhere and everywhere. They're happy with it. Well, my one son just wants to hand out candy. My older, he just turned 13. The 11-year-old now is actually looking at some really funny, he's got the best sense of humor. These ones where you have like where you're walking and you look like you're with another person doing something with a box. He wants to actually create one of those this year, which is fascinating because up until now didn't want to be seen different, anything, nothing in a costume. So my kids have always worn hockey jerseys. We've just always, my husband has tons of hockey jerseys, and I used to buy them thinking my kids might be into sports like my husband, but they're not. So the only time they wear them actually is Halloween. It's hilarious. And so they would wear a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And sometimes we might have had a Toronto Maple Leafs toque that they would wear if it was cold, that they needed something. Sometimes they'd wear a hockey helmet, most of the times not. Literally all they would have on was a hockey jersey, and that was it. And they were fine. And that's what they did every year after year after year, the same thing. And that's okay, right? It's totally fine. They know what it's going to be. They know how it's going to feel. I just had to make sure I had one their size every year. And it worked for them to not like still kind of participate, but in a way that worked for them. And that's the thing, really thinking outside the box for our kids. And oh my gosh, we have people on our street that dress up so like the neighbors will all combine together to create like the whole Love Boat scene, or a whole movie, all of the characters from a movie, and their artistry is phenomenal. And my kids wear a hockey jersey, right? And that's okay. It's totally fine. It's however they want it to be in order to be comfortable with what they're wearing. And if your kid wants to do all the big hoopla, like, oh, so exciting, so amazing, take pictures, please post them on my business, on my Facebook page. I would love to see all the kids of what they're doing. And I would love to see the kids too that have their sensitive costumes that work for them. And if they want to just hand out candy, that's fine as well. So how do we then work around the candy? So my one son, he's gotten a lot better, but he still struggles with dyes and colorings and the sugars if certain foods. So he eats like chocolate bars and chips. So he would finally eat chocolate bars. He actually couldn't even eat chocolate bars because of the dairy when he was younger. So it was dairy, gluten, dyes, coloring, sugar were big ones for him. He could not. Gluten, angry almost instantly. Oh, dyes and colorings too, like so angry. So suckers, Skittles, big ones. Skittles, M&Ms, all of these things with like the dyes and coloring on them, just outrageous for him. So at our house, the Switch Witch has always come. And the Switch Witch, they allows them to keep like 5 pieces of candy. So they usually like keep chips. The odd year, my kids would take a sucker. They would take, Skittles or something, a fruit burst, fruit chews, things like that, Starburst. And they'd have 5 of them. And interestingly, if they did choose all the sugar stuff, they've learned now for it to be chocolate and chips because they realized how bad they feel after the others. But in the past, in years gone by when they were younger, my son would be like, hey, can I have a sucker, or can I have one of my Halloween candies? I'm like, sure. Let's see how you feel after. How do you feel now? Do you feel like lots of energy, and are you happy, and are you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm really good right now. I'm like, okay. And he is like, he's calm, he's present. And then he'd have it. And before he'd even finish a sucker, he'd be screaming, hitting his brother, in tears, so angry about something, fighting about something. And he wouldn't finish the sucker, or he wouldn't finish the Skittles. Like, I'm talking a little Halloween pack of Skittles. Like, the way it would hit him was so hard. And usually, like, the next year Halloween would come by and his candies were still up in the cupboard. And they learned from a really young age that chips are okay from them and chocolate bars are okay from them. So what they would do, take their 5 pieces, and They would save them for the next day because they also know that they can't sleep well if they've had the sugars. Well, I would usually say, why don't you have a bag of chips? You sleep better after a bag of chips and without the sugar. So they have that. And then they would put everything on the dining room table for the switch to come at night. My one son who doesn't have the allergies, he was allowed to choose. I'm like, okay, you know, you don't have any of these sensitivities, it's your choice. And he always chose to give in his candy because the Switch Witch gives really cool gifts. So she's handed out Pokemon booster packs. She's handed out walkie-talkies one year. Oh man, did they ever love those walkie-talkies that she gave them. Like just kind of fun stuff, really fun stuff. So as a parent, it's only the 28th, if the Switch Witch is coming to your house, it you might want to start teaching your kids about the Switch Witch and maybe make sure that the Switch Witch knows to come so that she knows to have a gift for each of your kids by Halloween so that she can come at night. So that is the Switch Witch. Super cool. My kids love her when she comes. It's just fascinating. Then we have a post-Halloween routine. So Halloween does end early, so we usually like turn out our lights and we go into our regular bedtime routine, which is often having a snack, which is where we'll have our chili again, with the lights low while they're listening to a podcast. So they're not doing screens. And they'll listen to their podcast. They might have a shower or a bath and just chill. We'll put on calm music at times when they're upstairs. And then they'll go to their rooms and read for a little bit, and then they'll turn out the lights. So we do turn out our lights. Our neighborhood has a lot of young kids, and they come and they're done usually by 7 is usually like the big rushes are done. They start in the light. It's hilarious. And so we will shut off our lights so that nobody comes to our house anymore. If we have candy still, we'll just leave it in a bowl on the front steps. And we start really making sure that it's calmer for our kids. So they're prepped before too. They know that they're going to be able to have one thing after. Now, that might not be your thing. And like I said, when I started this episode, I said that some of the things I'm suggesting may not be for you. Some kids we know are like eating candy as they're all walking around and all of that. And that's totally fine. And you may know that they're going to have meltdowns and you may be okay with it and you're prepared for it. Thing two is preparing your kids for it. This is the one thing I've found with my kids with candy is always, what we've always done is I don't usually like say no. Well, it depends. I'd be like, well, it's pretty late at night and it affects your sleep. Is there maybe a better time that we should have this candy that you want? And they're like, what about after my breakfast tomorrow morning? I'm like, sure, let's do that. So my kids are conditioned already to not have like candy and sugar at night. That's just been something I've always worked on. I've done nutrition for 30 years. So it's just something I've always been with them, but it's been a process of teaching them about it and why and allowing them to make their decisions on it. Sometimes they have tried it and then they've struggled to fall asleep. So they've seen it. So that's the thing that you can do with Halloween too, is say, okay, let's see how you feel. Let's see how you feel if you do eat a lot of candy while you're walking around and doing that. Let's see if you have meltdowns. If you have meltdowns, how would you like to handle it? And this is an amazing thing, already working on their executive functioning as well, already working on their stress systems, is asking them, if you have sugar and then you're struggling to get ready for bed, what would you like me to do? How can I best help you? What has worked in the past? What would you like? How can we help you have the most success to actually have a good sleep and be better the next day? And they can help you with a plan before Halloween in order to help decide, like, do you want to limit your candies to a certain point? And they might say yes as far as their plan goes now, but then the Halloween day have the inhibition, not have the attention and the focus, and they may not be able to stop. And that's where we start bringing out our executive functioning tools that we've spoke of many times before, that I always speak of, that I teach in the support circle, that hey, what was our plan? How many pieces of candy did you decide in our plan? And you're saying that, did you decide in our plan? Okay. Was there a reason that you decided on that many? You've already talked about all of this before. Why did you decide that many pieces? Okay, that makes sense. Let's see how that goes. And so you've said, okay, well, you've decided on this many pieces. You said when you came back that you would put those pieces aside, that many, until you decided which 3 they were going to be and put everything else out of your sight. And if they haven't done that, you remind another plan. Hey, what was our plan? Our plan was to have those 3 and put the others away so it was out of sight so that you weren't tempted. What do you think we should do? Should we continue to follow our plan? And they may or may not be able to do it. And this is a great teaching experience. You're like, okay, so if they don't want to, all right, so sugar usually makes you feel this way. Should we just keep an eye out to see if that's going to happen so that we can see if it happens, if it's going to stop you from being able to, if it's going to get you really hyper, if it's going to get you really sad or angry, it's going to stop your sleep. It's going to make you feel icky in the morning because you're not going to have a good sleep. Should we just observe that now? Should we observe it? And they might say yes or no, right? And so you can talk about that, and it's okay, because teach it as learning experience then. And then the next morning or that night when it's happening, say, oh, is this what we were talking about that might happen when you had sugar? And they might acknowledge it. Like, okay, would you like some help with it right now? Would you like some help to get out of the strategy? And that's where, give them some protein, give them some protein and a fat, feed them something healthy, and see if that will help to balance out the sugars a little more. Not a lot of carbs, no carbs. They've already had enough carbs with the sugar. So balancing it out, okay? That's a really great thing to start helping them to start seeing what the sugar does to them, because if they don't see it, they're not going to want to make any changes to it. And everything is about what they want and can do versus them being told that they can't and then just wanting to go crazy with it, if that makes sense. All right, so that's your post-Halloween routine as well. Actually, it should be your pre-Halloween, is building that plan and then executing the plan. So making them see too, okay, so Halloween, once you come home at 7, we're going to turn out the lights. We're going to start making it calm. We're going to go through your candy. And then after that, we're going to start making everything calm and do our normal bed routine. We're going to do this and this and this and this. So they know ahead of time what's going to happen, so that your routine can be the same after. All right. Hopefully this helps. Again, I'm giving you a lot of ideas, a lot of suggestions. If you take one of them, amazing. You're already doing more than you were before you listened to this episode, right? So don't think you have to do all of these. This took me years to do. You have to think as well, I am a nutrition coach. I've been studying EF for like over a year. I've been working with my child on his stress system, and I'm very well versed in stress systems for, 8 years now. Longer than that. I've been working with clients for 8 years, but I worked on our stress systems for years before that until I actually could teach clients. So this has been a long time for me to get to this point of having all these strategies. No strategies are ever implemented right away. They're never implemented perfect. And the way they work for me are not how they're going to work for you. All right. So take what you're saying and going, hey, I like this. I'm going to adapt it this way. And this is how I'm going to try it. And then you're going to see what worked and didn't work. And then next year you can adapt it and change it and adjust it to make it work even better for you. Which brings us to the last one of time change. So time change is really tough on all of our bodies. We know how we feel after. So I'm actually excited that the time falls back, because the time fell back. So what I always do before time change, it's going to be later. Yeah. Time falls back. I always move the time, usually like 15, 20 minutes. I move it back like almost every day the week before. And I change all the clocks in our house, and I start adapting our like wake up time and our sleep time. Now we homeschool, that becomes a lot easier. So you'd have the scramble to school the next day, but you already are going to have, it's going to be, if you move your clocks on Thursday night, if your child can go to school a little bit later, right? Fall back. 8 a.m. will be set. We'll say 7. right? So they actually have to get up earlier the next day. That's going to be hard on them, right? Sorry. Always takes me a while to wrap my head around this, the fall back. So at night, 9 p.m. is going to say 8 p.m. So they actually get to stay up later. And in the morning, though, it's going to feel an hour earlier, right? All back. 8 o'clock is going to say 7. No, so they'd get to sleep in on Friday morning. That's what that would mean. Okay, so if they could go to school later on Friday morning and they could sleep in like an hour earlier, change all your clocks and go to school an hour later. And then that way, after school, they'll come home. Your clocks will also be back. So it'll feel like an hour earlier, but feed them dinner a little bit earlier. And you can go to bed like a half hour earlier, which would still be a half hour later than usual. And then Saturday morning, you're waking up like you get an extra hour sleep, right? Fall back. 8 o'clock says 7. Right, you get an extra hour sleep in the morning. So Saturday, you guys should all get an extra hour sleep in the morning before you start your day. The thing is if you have activities, make sure that you are going on the regular time. So maybe don't set the watch on your wrist, but everything else, well, your phone won't change. So maybe set alarms on your phone for any Saturday activities. But other than that, change it back already before Saturday. So you're changing it Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, changing your clocks back. This is huge for us. I've done this since my kids were babies. Like the week before when they were babies, that was so hard because they did not realize that we should be getting an hour's sleep or that the times had changed. And, it's 5 a.m. They're thinking it's 6 a.m. And it's just like, no, I don't want to be waking up earlier. So I always, the week before, started adjusting all of their routine, their nap routine, sleep routines, 15 minutes, adjusting with whatever the time change was. So with the time change, I know I got a little mixed up there, but with the time change, if you start adjusting that on Thursday, you can even adjust it a little bit on Wednesday night, even a half hour difference on Wednesday night. So that let them stay up an extra half hour on Wednesday night so that Thursday night for Halloween, they're staying up a little bit later, still actually ends up being their regular bedtime. So Friday as well, they start adjusting to the time easier so that by Monday, by the time they go to school, you guys are all okay. So that is my hack, always around Halloween. That was a lot. We talked about things you can do the week of in order to make sure that it's really calm and great for your child's stress system. Having a crock pot dinner, slow cooker dinner ready to go once you guys get home so you can focus on getting all ready for Halloween and doing all your thing. Sensory friendly Halloween costumes, the Switch Witch coming, post Halloween routine, also our pre-Halloween routine, getting the kids getting a plan in place for the candies they're going to eat, what they're going to do, when they're going to go to bed, so they know how that is all going to play out, so they're ready for it, and what to do if they do eat tons of candy, and time change preparation, how to really prepare for time change. That was a lot. So these are things, though, that I will always be going over in, well, not just Halloween, but the executive functioning pieces of this in my support circle membership. Currently, and the price may change, currently it's $57 a month. So it's easy. You'll be getting all of this help on executive functioning support, on stress support, on sleep, on all different aspects of your child's stress system to be able to help support them as best as possible, and the executive functioning in order to be able to help that manager of their brain be able to help them get through their brain easier so it's not taxing their stress system as much. I'm also trauma informed. I'm a trauma informed coach, and I can work on any traumas that have come because of perfectionism, because of making mistakes, a lot of things that do come with being very sensitive to your environment, empathic, all of those things that do come along as well with being neurodiverse and a kid with big emotions. So go to the links in the show note and join our support circle membership group where I am building out all of the lessons and programs and things, and I will have weekly calls in order to answer all of your questions and help you, and I can answer questions as you ask them in the group as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Don't forget to click that link, join our support circle, and I will see you in the next episode. Happy Halloween. I hope that you all have a great time.